All right, so today we're going to deep on Oskar Schindler, really trying to understand this guy, the guy who saved all those Jewish lives during the Holocaust. But we're going to look at him through a pretty unique lens, the Enneagram.
And not just any Enneagram type. We're talking about type 7, the enthusiast, but even more specifically, the self-preservation subtype.
See, that's what I find so interesting because when you think Oskar Schindler, self-preservation isn't exactly the first thing that pops into your head, right?
Yeah.
And we think hero, savior, not someone mainly worried about their own safety and comfort.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. We're going to see how those traits, the ones we usually link with self-interest, actually, played a key role in his incredible actions.
So how do we even start to put those two things together? I mean, the sources describe this subtype, this keeper of the castle, as strategic, resourceful.
Focused on creating a secure, comfortable environment for themselves. But here's the thing. Castle, for the subtype, it's not just, a physical place. It's like a whole system, resources, connections, advantages, anything that makes them feel, secure, in control.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could connect to Schindler, especially early on in his story.
Yeah, absolutely. Spielberg's film, Schindler's List, actually does a really great job of showing these self-preservation 7 tendencies right from the start.
Now that you mention it, that opening scene where Schindler is so meticulous about how he looks, the right suit, the perfect tie. It's all about making an impression, projecting a certain image. It's classic self-preservation 7, right?
Exactly. And then you've got that scene in the nightclub. Schindler he works the room so effortlessly, securing favors, making connections. He gets the power of relationships and he uses it to his advantage. It's not just about being charming. It's a calculated strategy for building that castle we were talking about.
And we can't forget the factory itself. Starting a business in the middle of wartime chaos, it's a risk. But it's also incredibly strategic. He saw the opportunity to create this whole network, this web of relationships that would benefit him, making his castle even stronger with resources and security.
It is fascinating, isn't it, how in the beginning, Schindler's castle is very much about him, about his own success and comfort. But then as he starts to see the horrors that the Jewish community is facing, there's this profound shift. This is where that paradox starts to unravel.
And this is what I find so compelling. His castle, this need for security, it starts to grow outwards. It becomes about more than just him.
Exactly. And it's not like he suddenly turns into some kind of saint. He's still at his core a self-preservation 7,
Right.
but his motivations, his priorities, they go through this dramatic change.
His networking, which, started out as all about his own personal gain, it becomes a way to protect others. He's still strategizing, but now it's about saving lives, outsmarting the Nazis. Even his gluttony, that Seven's desire for abundance, it takes on a whole new meaning.
That's a really great point early on, that gluttony is about indulging the finer things in life. But as his empathy grows, this desire for more, it becomes fixated on saving as many people as he can.
It's like that fear of scarcity that drives the self-preservation 7, that deep-seated need to gather resources. It's now directed outwards. He's not hoarding possessions. He's desperately trying to gather human lives, to protect them within his expanded castle.
Yeah. And that emotional breakdown that he has in the film, about not being able to save more people, it really illustrates this shift, that gluttony is still there, but it's not about personal indulgence anymore. It's about this huge sense of responsibility for those lives entrusted to him. It's really powerful.
So we're seeing this incredible change in his motivations. But here's the thing, and this is what makes it so complex. He doesn't lose those self-preservation skills. He doesn't just become this selfless hero, does he?
No, not at all. He's still pragmatic. He's still negotiating with Nazi officials, managing resources, using his understanding of power dynamics to navigate this incredibly dangerous situation.
He's using those same tools that built his castle of self-preservation to create a sanctuary for others.
Exactly. And that's what makes him so effective. It's this unique mix of self-preservation and compassion. The factory becomes both a business and a safe haven. It's a real testament to the dual nature of his actions.
So what we're seeing is that even traits we might think of as selfish, they can actually be the foundation for incredible acts of good.
It really challenges our idea of what a hero is, doesn't it? And it raises a question, could someone who was purely altruistic, someone without that inherent drive for self-preservation, have done what Schindler did?
It's definitely something to think about. We often try to put people into neat little boxes, but Schindler's story shows us that human nature is a lot more nuanced than that. There's a complexity there that's worth exploring further.
And that's exactly what we'll do as we dig deeper into the specific strategies Schindler used. We'll look at the insights from your sources, and we'll uncover how his self-preservation instincts, instead of holding him back, they actually became the key to saving so many lives. So, picking up where we left off, let's look closer at some of the specific strategies that Schindler used. You know, the ones that made him so effective. The sources really highlight his approach to forming alliances. It was crucial,
Hmm.
and it wasn't just about charm. Although, I mean, he definitely had that.
Yeah, we talked about how self-preservation sevens, they're good at building those relationships, but this was high stakes. So how did he use that skill in such a dangerous environment?
It goes back to that castle idea. Schindler, he was really good at understanding people, you
Yeah.
know, what they needed, what motivated them. And he'd find ways to create this sense of mutual benefit, even when it seemed, you know, kind of counterintuitive.
So there were like deeper calculations going on beneath that surface charm. That's a little unsettling, isn't it?
It's complicated, for sure. Take his relationship with Itzhak Stern, his Jewish accountant. Schindler, he saw Stern's intelligence, his business skills, and he offered him opportunity,
Yeah.
protection. And Stern, well, he saw Schindler as someone who could help him, you know, navigate this increasingly hostile world.
And this extended to how he dealt with Nazi officials too, right?
Right.
The sources, they make it pretty clear that maintaining those relationships, it was crucial to his plan.
Oh, absolutely. He cultivated those connections through gifts, socializing, understanding what they desired, even their fears. Schindler knew that to protect his Jewish workers, he had to work within that corrupt system, even if it meant, you know, dealing with the very people who embodied the evil he was fighting against.
That's like walking a tightrope, aligning himself with the Nazis.
Correct.
It's hard to understand how he managed to do that without being corrupted himself.
It really shows the adaptability of the self-preservation seven. They can shift, maneuver in different environments, always looking for that advantage, that angle that secures their position.
There's also this idea of the family game that the sources talk about. It's something self-preservation sevens are known for.
Yeah.
So how did that play out in Schindler's actions?
Think about how he ran his factory. At first, it was about business efficiency, you know, making a profit. But as his motivations changed, the factory, it became more than just a workplace. It became a refuge, a community where Jewish workers felt like they belonged, like they were protected.
So the family he created, it went beyond blood ties. It was about survival, but also about purpose. This shared sense of defiance against the Nazis.
And that sense of belonging, it's crucial to the self-preservation Seven's castle, creating stability, security, not just for themselves, but for those within their circle. And in Schindler's case, that circle, it grew to include over 1,000 people.
It's striking to me that this evolution, it's not about him abandoning his practical skills, his strategic thinking. Actually, those skills become even more important as the stakes get higher.
You're exactly right. He understood that to save lives, he had to be resourceful, pragmatic, you know, able to adapt. Those traits that we often associate with self-preservation, they actually became the tools that allowed him to act heroically.
The sources emphasize that Schindler was able to stay pragmatic even when faced with such incredible suffering. He never lost sight of the need to operate effectively within a system that was, well, corrupt.
Yeah.
That's remarkable, isn't it?
That's the key to his success, I think. He was a master negotiator, a strategist, always, you know, thinking a few steps ahead, anticipating the needs and the motivations of the people around him.
Well, wasn't there a risk in all of this?
Yeah.
Aligning himself with the Nazis, even strategically, it could have backfired, and
Yeah.
terribly. How did he manage that?
He wasn't afraid to push the limits, you know, to bend the rules when he had to. He understood the game, the players, and he was willing to take calculated risks to protect the people under his care. Playing it safe, it wouldn't have been enough.
It makes you wonder if he'd been a different personality type, would he have been as successful? Could someone less focused on self-preservation, on control, could they have navigated that world as effectively?
That's a really good question. It really makes us rethink what makes a hero. We often think of heroes as, you know, purely selfless. But Schindler's story, it shows us that heroism can be can be complicated, driven by motives that aren't always easy to categorize.
There's that duality again.
Yeah.
Self-preservation, fueling these acts of incredible compassion.
He was a flawed person, no doubt. But
Mhm.
his flaws, those self-preservation instincts, they actually, in a way, they became part of his strength. It's a powerful reminder that, human nature is rarely black and white.
It's like his gluttony that the sources mentioned. It took on this whole other dimension. It wasn't about, indulging himself anymore. It was about this insatiable desire to save as many lives as he could.
That scene, the one where he breaks down because he couldn't save more people, even with all the resources he had, it's incredibly powerful. He was using every connection, every bit of leverage, every ounce of cunning he had to protect those people. It was all consuming.
His drive, his ambition, in a different context, it might have seemed selfish. But here, it became a force for good. It fueled this relentless pursuit of saving lives.
It really shows the transformative power of empathy. When Schindler, when he connected with the suffering of others, his whole perspective shifted. His core motivations, they were redirected towards something much bigger than himself.
So we see this incredible evolution from a desire for security and comfort, those classic self-preservation 7 traits, into this profound sense of responsibility for the well-being of others. It's like his castle had to expand to hold all those lives.
It reminds us that even traits we might consider, self-centered, they can be channeled into something extraordinary when they're fueled by compassion and a higher purpose. And what's even more interesting is that he never loses that practicality, that sharp strategic mind.
It's this dual nature of Schindler's personality, this
Yeah.
blend of pragmatism and compassion. That's what made him so effective. It allowed him to operate within a system of immense evil without being consumed by it.
Yes, exactly. He was a master at navigating the complexities of that world, understanding the motivations of those in power, and using that knowledge to protect the people who are most vulnerable.
His story, it's a testament to human ingenuity, to resilience, to finding opportunity where others just saw despair. He found a way to make a difference, even when he was surrounded by unimaginable cruelty.
It's a story that still inspires us today. It challenges our assumptions and it reminds us of the potential for good that exists within each of us.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how Schindler's personality, his Enneagram type, how that influenced his actions. But I'm curious, what about the impact of his environment? Could anyone have done what he did? Or was there something unique about the circumstances that allowed him to succeed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's tough to say for sure if anyone else could have done what Schindler did, but the sources, they do point out that the specific context of wartime Krakow, it played a big role.
So you're saying the environment itself, the circumstances, they'd kind of created certain opportunity.
Exactly. The Nazi regime, with its brutality, the chaos, it actually, ironically, it provided a kind of cover for for his operations. The authorities, they were often more concerned with keeping order, with their own agendas, than they were with closely watching every factory.
It's almost like the situation itself created a distraction. And that allowed Schindler to operate, under the radar.
In a way, yeah, he was able to look like he was following, Nazi demands on the surface, but secretly he was working against them. And this is where his business skills come in. The fact that his factory was a legitimate business, producing goods for the war effort, it provided a really important layer of protection for his Jewish workers.
Right. That makes sense. The Nazis, they saw the factory as a source of profit, of production. So they weren't as likely to interfere,
Right.
even if they had suspicions.
Exactly. Schindler's ability to run a successful business, even with all the chaos of the war, it was essential to his success in saving lives. It allowed him to work within the system to use it to his advantage.
It's fascinating how these external factors, when you combine them with Schindler's personality, his Enneagram type, they created this well, almost like a perfect storm in a way. It's like fate brought all the pieces together.
Yeah, it really shows how individual action and historical events, they interact in complex ways. Schindler's story isn't just about, one man's heroism. It's about how multiple forces came together, the specific conditions that made his actions possible.
And it makes you wonder about I bet all the other acts of courage, of resistance, the ones that maybe went unnoticed during that time, people who maybe didn't have the same resources, the same opportunities that Schindler had.
Absolutely. We tend to focus on the big narratives of history, but it's important to remember those individual stories, the stories of resilience, of defiance. They often happened on a much smaller scale, hidden from view.
It's a humbling thought. Schindler's story has become so iconic, almost larger than life. It's easy to forget that he was just one person, one of millions who were affected by the Holocaust.
You're right, and it's really important to remember that his actions, as extraordinary as they were also part of this larger network of resistance, of rescue efforts. Countless people, both Jewish and non-Jewish, they risked their lives to protect others.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit, it it can persevere, it can resist, it can create these little pockets of hope, of compassion.
And it makes us think about, about how we would act in similar situations. What choices would we make? What risks would we be willing to take to stand up for what's right?
Those are questions that go way beyond the specific historical context of the Holocaust. They get at something fundamental
Yeah.
about human nature, about the choices we make when we're faced with injustice.
Schindler's story gives us this incredible example of how one person can make a difference. But it also reminds us that we all have this responsibility to shape the world around us, to promote justice, to cultivate compassion, to encourage understanding.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Oskar Schindler, into his life and his actions, what strikes me is the complexity of his story. A man driven by self-preservation, but who ultimately used those same instincts to save the lives of over 1,000 people.
It challenges our assumptions about what makes a hero. It reminds us that good can come from unexpected places, and even people with flaws, they can rise to do extraordinary things. It really makes you think.
His story is a testament to human resilience,
Hmm.
to the strength of the human spirit,
Hmm.
and to the potential for transformation that's inside all of us.
It's a story that continues to inspire us,
Hmm.
to make us reflect, and to challenge us to think about how we can use our own strengths, our own resources to make a positive impact on the world.
As we end this conversation, I'm left with this question:
Hmm.
if someone like Schindler, with all his complexities and flaws, if he could find the courage to act, what potential is there inside each of us? What seemingly ordinary traits do we have that when they're fueled by compassion, by purpose, could help us do something truly amazing? That's something I'll be thinking about long after this deep dive.